Welcome back, everybody, to Toronto Today here on the Parlay. I'm your host, Luca, alongside my co-host, Michael, and we are back with another edition of this show on this fine Wednesday. Before we get into another action-packed show, we're going to talk about our best bet of the night. Mike, I hate to put you on the spot like this, but if there's ever a guy who's in desperate need of a winner tonight, it's you, my friend.
Come on, Luca. Come on. I was watching that game and at times I'm like, okay, this is in the bag. Like I finally got this W. Even heading into that fourth quarter, we're talking about Golden State and Memphis last night. Obviously, Luca and I were on polarizing ends of that bet. Luca took the Grizzlies, I took the Warriors, and it was Luca who came out on top with the Grizz. I think winning by 8 points at the end of it, 6 or 8, but there was so many lead changes in that game. It was so back and forth, and I gotta hand it to you, Luca. You were correct, and as of now, the people should obviously be listening to you because I'm 0-3. 0-3, man. It's a rough start, but it's not how you start; it's how you finish, right?
I like the positive mindset. Despite your losses, you're still hoping for better days. It was a game that could have gone either way. I know the Grizzlies did get off to that great start in the first half, and I'll be honest, I was looking at the score as I was watching the Raptors game, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I got this in the bag. And then all of a sudden, in that second half, going into the fourth, like you alluded to, the Warriors started coming back. And that's the last thing I wanted to see because I know they have capable players who can go on runs. Klay Thompson's back, Stephen Curry's back. But I really loved how the Grizzlies closed out this game. Their resiliency is unbelievable. Just when it looked like the Warriors were going to come back, John Morant and company doing their thing to close this one out. The Grizzlies have now won 10 games in a row. It is unbelievable how this team is playing right now. Nobody expected them to be this good out of the gate. And here they are, not only winning these games, but got the media talking about could this team be a potential dark horse in the Western Conference. But I'll tell you this, Mike. I would love nothing more than to see the Grizzlies and Warriors in a potential second round playoff matchup in the NBA playoffs. If the playoffs started today, it would be Warriors and Grizzlies in the second round, assuming they win their first round matchup. So it's great to see the Grizzlies get their recognition. They're winning these games, and we'll see if they keep it going.
Yeah, seriously, that was a playoff-like atmosphere last night. And Luca, speaking of a playoff-like atmosphere, I'll do your job, do a little bit of segue here. How about the Raptors and Suns last night, man? I know there was no fans in the building. I know, except for the Raptor, which was really hilarious when Devin Booker got mad at the Raptor. But that game felt like a playoff game by all accounts. The intensity was there, and Luca, unfortunately, the Raptors did not come out on top, but they did, Luca, cover that 4.5 point spread that we were talking about last night. What did you make of the game last night?
It was a great game, and it's funny how it ended with the spread literally barely covered, and it came down to
Yeah.
a free throw matchup. I like how the Suns eliminated the opportunity for the Raptors to potentially tie that game up with a three. So they played the free throw game, and it worked out in the Suns' advantage to win the game, but it worked out in the Raptors' advantage to cover the spread. So if you did bet Raptors plus 4.5, good job. And I think you said to do that, Mike. I was undecided about this one, and then I was leaning towards the Suns, so it was not a good pick for me. But this was a really good game. It's a shame no fans were able to see this live. This had a playoff atmosphere. You had two heavyweights, going back and forth. And the Phoenix Suns, this was a team that I'm surprised the Raptors almost beat them, considering that Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent Jr. were out. The Raptors really fought hard, tooth and nail, through and through. And if it wasn't for Phoenix doing what they do best, and that's close games out in the fourth quarter, the Raptors could have very well won this game on the money line. It's a true testament about how well this Raptors team is playing right now. It's the next man up mentality. We saw it with one player in particular, Justin Champagnie, making the most out of his minutes, all over the glass, getting second chance opportunities for his team, playing great defense. And this Raptors team, they went toe to toe with one of the best teams in the NBA. And it's not about looking at this game and saying, okay, the Raptors, they didn't have their, full team out there. You still got to look at the product that they put out. Those guys who did get minutes, they were playing hard through and through. So I'm excited. I think this Raptors team is legit, and they've proven that they can hang with the best of them. And it was funny to see that whole mascot altercation with Devin Booker. How is Devin Booker phased by shooting free throws in front of the mascot, but he's not phased when he shoots free throws in front of what, thousands of fans? You tell me, Mike. How does
Yeah,
that make sense?
yeah. I have no answer to that. I mean, the Raptors widely regarded as probably the best mascot in the league, so maybe there is something there when he's the only one in the building. That's what you're focusing on. But it almost worked, and it is what it is. Devin Booker will just remain salty about that. But like getting back to the game a little bit, I mean, you mentioned it there. Two heavyweights now, Luca, is what we're considering the Raptors is a heavyweight, and that's kind of just the way that they're playing right now. They're playing some really good basketball. Last night in particular, I mean, going head to head with the Suns, 10 lead changes, 15 ties. That's that's a really good basketball game. And when you consider kind of the Raptors shot themselves in the foot from the free throw line, they just went 15 of 25 from the free throw line. And they also went 8 of 20, 8 of 37 from beyond the arc, which is just not good enough. The Raptors as a team were 4 and 27 from beyond the arc, aside from Fred VanVleet. And it really, like as you mentioned, there the absence of Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent Jr. It really showed down the stretch as the Raptors were. I mean, the Suns were focusing in on the Raptors' two primetime guys. Of course, that's Siakam and VanVleet. So without Barnes or Gary Trent Jr. in the lineup to kind of create their own shot, it was tough for guys like VanVleet and Siakam, OG Anunoby as well to sort of take over. But there was a lot of hustle. We saw a ton of offensive rebounds. Got to give some love to Chris Boucher, who is probably the most polarizing player right now on the Toronto Raptors team. But he's stepped up of late. Justin Champagnie, as you said too, he's making a case to get into Nick Nurse's rotation. And yeah, now I think although they lost last night, they covered that spread, and you can kind of talk about the Raptors as potentially a team that no one really wants to face in the playoffs because they kind of play that similar brand as the Phoenix Suns, where they're really good defensively and they have a bunch of people on their team that can create their own shot, which is a good recipe in the playoffs. So, Luca, I come away from that game feeling pretty positive about the Raptors despite the loss.
Yeah, they had no business winning that game, but yet they were right there at the end with a chance to win. You never want to feel good about losses, but if there's ever a time, this is the time. The Raptors, they played their best basketball despite missing two starters. They weren't just missing anybody, two starters. Gary Trent Jr. would have definitely helped late in that game to stretch out the floor and hit some key shots when Phoenix did lock in on Siakam, especially when Aiden did go on Siakam. I think Siakam shot something like 1 of 5 from the field, and Fred VanVleet didn't have another 30-point game, but you could tell the Raptors were missing some offense towards the end of that one. And obviously Scotty Barnes, what he's able to do out there with his playmaking and a little bit of his defense, and also he would have provided some offensive punch. Phoenix was relatively healthy going into this one. They were just missing Cam Johnson and a couple of other bench pieces. But all in all, this was the Phoenix Suns team that you're going to see come playoff time. So the fact that the Raptors went blow for blow with this team, that says a lot about them. I don't know what's going on with the Raptors, the no fans, the new year, but they are just playing with such great confidence, and they got everybody talking now. I saw even on Twitter, a lot of people are now talking about the Raptors as a potential sleeper team in the East. And you just said it, Mike. You do not want to play a healthy Raptors team in a 7-game series. I don't care who you are at the top of the Eastern Conference. Nets, Bucks, Bulls, the Raptors are going to bring it. And they do it on the defensive end, which allows for their offense to open up. And you saw in that first half against Phoenix, they neutralized Phoenix's best players. Now, Phoenix is a great team. They got theirs in the second half because that's what good teams do. But the Raptors played this game as well as you could have hoped. And that's why Vegas is just showing the Raptors a lot of respect right now. We were talking about it on yesterday's show. Why was this line as low as it was with Gary Trent Jr. and Scotty Barnes questionable? They knew they weren't going to play. They know the Raptors are a safe bet right now, and they know the Raptors are playing teams tough. It doesn't matter if they're a bottom-feeding team, top of the conference team. The Raptors, they are a good bang for your buck. And speaking of good bang for your buck, let's just talk about some futures now because we like to do that on this show. Let's stick with these two teams. So right now, the Phoenix Suns clearly have a better shot than the Raptors at winning the NBA championship. They got the league's best record after Golden State did lose to the Memphis Grizzlies. The Suns plus 650 to win an NBA championship. We'll talk about the Suns before we get into the Raptors long shot pick here.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a fair value based on what we've said already about the Phoenix Suns in terms of they were the team that went to the NBA Finals last season. They made a lot of noise and they brought essentially their full team back. Devin Booker's a year older, and we know what he can kind of do come the playoffs. And yeah, that's a testament to kind of how well the Raptors played last night. Listen, the Suns brought it. The Suns threw everything at the Raptors. Like, they pulled out all the stunts to ensure that they win that game. We talk about Devin Booker sending the Raptor away. We talk about the way that they fouled at the end of the game to not even give the Raptors a chance to get that 3-point shot off. That's the type of game the Suns needed to play in order to come away with that victory. And yeah, that does, shed some light on the Raptors' chances, and right now that could be really good value, Luca. Right now they're sitting at plus 6,000 to win the NBA championship. Now I'm not saying they do it, but if you have a couple bucks lying around, crazier things can have happened. And this Raptors team, who knows, if they make a big acquisition at the deadline, they've shown enough that they can make a run, then maybe that is some wild value that you can bet on.
I would do this just for fun, just to put it out there and have a laugh out of it. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Yeah, plus 6,000, ridiculous odds. Are the Raptors going to win the NBA championship? There's virtually no shot. But if they do get in, and let's just say upset one of those top tier teams, all of a sudden they're in the second round, it's wide open. Who knows what could happen? Crazier things have happened in the past. But looking at realistic, good value bets in the NBA for teams that could win the NBA championship, I wouldn't go with the Phoenix Suns. Listen, I like the Suns. They're a good young team, obviously with Chris Paul there being that veteran. But I just think they missed their chance at winning the championship. I still think this team will be in contention. I got them going to the Western Conference Finals. But there are so many good other teams now in the mix that the Suns have to go up against. And it starts with the Warriors, who is my favorite to come out. But my good value for a team that I can see maybe winning the NBA championship is actually going to come in the East. And I think this team are the Phoenix Suns of this year. And that is the Chicago Bulls. Plus 1,600 right now. They are first in the East. I'm surprised these odds are as good as they are, because this Bulls team have proven they can beat anybody. They have beaten the Nets twice. They play the Nets again tonight. This is a team that does it on both ends. DeMar DeRozan, he's a fourth quarter killer. Zach LaVine, this is a good complement of players. So I am looking at the Bulls in terms of future value here. And if I want to get even more bold and more crazy, the Memphis Grizzlies, plus 2,800. Why not? They beat a team that I think is going to be in the NBA Finals a couple times, in the Golden State Warriors. If the Grizzlies somehow match up against the Warriors and beat them in the playoffs, who's going to beat them in the West? I don't know. So I would put some money on the Grizzlies just for the hell of it, because you never know what that team can do. They have proven that they can beat top heavy teams in the NBA. They beat the Nets last week. So those are two bets that I would look at very closely, in the Bulls in the East and the Grizzlies if you're feeling extra risky.
Yeah, no, those are two very good values right now. And we talk about the Bulls quite a bit on this show. And perhaps the main reason for that is still the question mark surrounding DeMar DeRozan. Listen, we know what type of player he is in the regular season. And although he has gotten better with the Bulls, I still think there's question marks about whether or not he can do it in the playoffs as the guy. And I think at this point, the Bills team will only go as far as DeMar DeRozan will take them, despite the star power that is surrounding him. And Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, obviously Vucevic, Alex Caruso playing a good role for that team. But yeah, they're first in the East for a reason right now. So why not throw down some money on them? And the Grizzlies, I mean, I'm not going to bet against the Grizzlies with you. I mean, clearly you know something that a lot of people are now taking notice of over this on this Grizzlies team. And Ja Morant is just getting better and better and better. So, yeah, two really good values there, Luca. Although, I like the Raptors. I like the Raptors at those odds plus 6,000. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's easy to cheer for, of course, if you do go with the Raptors as your long shot bet here. Before we switch on over to the Leafs very quickly here, Nick Nurse, plus 5,000 to win Coach of the Year. Would you go with that?
Yeah, I think he has a really good case, especially when you consider what the Raptors have dealt with and are still dealing with now, especially with no fans right now at Scotiabank Arena. If this Raptors team goes on and finishes top 4, top 3 in the Eastern Conference, I think he has a legitimate shout right now to win Coach of the Year. They're going through a lot of different adversaries, as I mentioned. And he's doing it with a team that no one really expected to do it. So if they continue on this path, I mean, plus 5,000 for Nick Nurse Coach of the Year, that's a good shout.
Yeah, see, this one I like because there's still a lot of time left in the season, and there's not a huge gap between where the Raptors are now and further up in the standings. So if the Raptors continue to get hot, guys come back, they're playing this level of basketball for the entire second half of the season, the Raptors could potentially get into a top four, even top three, if we're thinking best case scenario here, spot. And if that were to happen, Nick Nurse would be a pretty good bet at those odds. I'm going to sound like a Memphis Grizzlies homer right now, but I was looking at it. Taylor Jenkins plus 600 would probably be my bet. It's not super up there, but it's a good enough bet where, yeah, you would get some good value right now if you did put it on him, because the Grizzlies could still continue to move on up. So we'll see what happens there. But we are now going to move on over to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were victorious in a shootout last night. And you look at this game, the Leafs are now 5-1 in their last 6 games against Vegas. I think we both took the Leafs to win this game, so we both got that right. And it was at least first shootout victory of the season. What was your main takeaway from this game?
The main takeaway, of course, is the fact that they kind of blew another lead, another late lead too, and that they were leading 3-1, and then Vegas came back. If you see me yawning or anything today, that's because obviously staying up to watch that game, and it was a really good hockey game. At times it was kind of dull because that's kind of what the Leafs wanted, but when Vegas tied the game, it kind of opened it back up a little bit. And hey, it's 2 points you'll take on the road against a Vegas Golden Knights team that's playing pretty good hockey right now. I know they're missing Jack Eichel, and if he comes back, then that would be a very dangerous team. Of course, Pacioretty and Shea Theodore as well were absent last night for the Golden Knights, so at least took advantage and they did what they had to do. Overall, I wasn't crazy about their performance, but like I said, those are types of games you kind of walk away with, even though you don't have the best performance. You walked away with 2 points, so I'm happy there. And now we can talk about the Leafs power play being a serious threat as the ranked number 1 in the NHL. They didn't capitalize last night on their chances, but they look dangerous at times, and I like the direction they're heading there on the power play. And they own Las Vegas. Auston Matthews in particular owns Las Vegas. So the Leafs are 5-1 in their last 6 games against Vegas. And Matthews, he just continues to tear it up. He has 23 goals. I think he has something ridiculous like 16 goals in his last 14 games. Just overall, it's a positive takeaway for the Leafs to come away with those 2 points in that fashion.
Yeah, my thing is this. I'm okay with the Leafs blowing leads as long as they win that game. You hate to see it when they blow a lead and they end up losing the game. So they were able to salvage it, get some points here against a pretty good opponent. They're going to be in the second night of a back-to-back against the Coyotes. We're going to get to that game in a second. But I do want to talk about the Leafs' chances at winning the President's Trophy. So right now they're at 49 points, and they're plus 50 to win that award. There are some other teams in the mix. Obviously,
Plus 450, right?
You got the Lightning, the Panthers, the Predators, and you got the Blues and Avalanche, who are going to be in the mix as well, just behind the Leafs in terms of points. Would you take the Leafs to win this award?
Yeah, and I was just saying, I think you said plus 50. I think it's just plus 450, just to clarify. But maybe you said that, I just misheard. But yeah, Leafs to win the President's Trophy at plus 4. I don't love that value, even though I do think the Leafs are a good shot to win the President's Trophy. They're proving not only against teams in the Atlantic Division or Canadian Division, they're doing it league wide, and even against Western Conference teams, they're going out on West Coast trips and they're picking up maximum points right now. So yeah, I wouldn't mind betting on the Leafs again. I'm just not crazy about those plus 450 odds. I don't think it's a guarantee right now. How about you, Luca?
Yeah, it's too good. If it was not as good as these, I would have probably put some money on the Leafs, but they're one of the favorites now to win this, and I don't like that. Every time the Leafs are favorite, not good things happen following that. So I would probably defer here. I would either avoid this altogether, or I would look at a team like the Blues as a team that can get hot and move on way up their standings, or even a team like the Avalanche. The Avs are going to be there. They're a solid team, great team. And then, of course, you got to put some respect on the defending champs' names, and that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Although they don't have really good odds either. This is going to go to one of those favorites, but this is probably one I would stay away. But something that I do like is Sheldon Keefe, plus 1,000 at winning the Jack Adams Award as the NHL Coach of the Year. This one's good because the Leafs are going to be at the top of the standings, regardless of if they finish with the most points or not. So this is one that I actually would put money on. The value's there. So yeah, this is one that I actually like.
Yeah, I think at the very least, Sheldon Keefe will be a finalist come the end of the season. I know there's a lot of games still to be played, and at plus 1,000, that's good value if the Leafs go on and really make a push here towards that President's Trophy. And similar with the Raptors, Leafs have had to go through a lot of struggles, not playing in front of fans for a lot of this season. And I know it's a little bit tougher in terms of the COVID protocol and everything to kind of play in Canada as opposed to somewhere down the states where things are kind of a little bit more free, a little bit more open. And you got to factor that in when you consider the coach of the year and keeping his team motivated. I know the Leafs have a very good team on paper, but even heading into this season, there was question marks about what will this team regress? Will this team kind of get a little bit worse than last season when they kind of just tore it up? They lost some pieces, Zach Hyman notably. But that's not the case right now. And this team is proving a lot of people wrong. And they're continuing to do it in a fashion that really isn't having anyone blink an eye. So, yeah, I love that value plus 1,000 right now for Sheldon Keefe.
The Leafs have been a safe bet against Western Conference opponents, 10-3 now in their last 13 straight up against the West. They're gonna be in the West again tonight. They're going to be taking on the Coyotes. This is going to be Auston Matthews' homecoming, so he's going to be excited about playing in this one. Let's bring up some odds for tonight's game with Matthews. He's a minus 130 anytime goal scorer, and this is the interesting one. Plus 400 to score 2 or more. What would you put your bet on here? What would you pick?
I'm all in on Matthews right now, scoring 2 or more goals. He scored in a franchise record. He tied the record actually with his 8th straight road game with a goal, which is pretty ludicrous, but that's Auston Matthews. That's the definition of Auston Matthews. I know against the Arizona Coyotes, he's actually struggled a bit in his career. One of the teams he's actually scored the least amount. He's played 8 games against the Coyotes and scored 3 times, adding 1 assist, which for any other player would be pretty decent numbers, but for Auston Matthews, not that great. So, yeah, I'm a little bit nervy, but I would do it because Auston Matthews just defies odds. 10 goals in total actually in his last 8 road games, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, and 16 goals in his last 14, which is why I'm riding with that. I think it's good enough value for me to put some money on that. I think Matthews has a big game. You talk about his struggles against the Coyotes. Maybe he freezes up a bit going up, against, his hometown team. But this is a guy who's been playing outstanding hockey. This is a guy who is catching fire. And we talk about maybe him winning another Rocket Richard. Yeah, this is going to help that case. He continues to climb up the goal scoring list, and I think he's going to have a big night tonight. I think he's going to have some extra motivation, some extra juice, and the fact that he's coming in hot, I think is going to help his case. And then also I want to look at here quickly, Mike, the over-under for this game is 6 goals. I'll start here. I say smash this. The Leafs have gone over with their opponent in the last couple of games, so this seems like a pretty safe bet. I think we both assume a lot of goals will be scored in this one, especially if we're both banking on Matthews at least getting 2 of them.
For sure. And, the Leafs are huge favorites in this game. And the total for that over under actually opened at 5.5, which would have been even more enticing, but it's obviously gone up a little bit since. And yeah, everyone's favoring the over for one major reason, and that's because the Arizona Coyotes are not very good. 7-23-3 this season is their overall record. They're 3-13 at home, and they've lost by 2 or more goals in 7 of their last 9 games, which is not very good. The Leafs, on the other hand, they actually have, as I mentioned, the best power play percentage in the NHL, while Arizona has taken the 2nd most penalties in the league and is 29th in penalty killing. Smash that over. And when you consider the fact that Peter Mrazek is also going to be making just his 4th start of the season, and he struggled so far this year, posting a sub 900 goal or save percentage and a goals against average, I believe, above 4, then it could be more room for the Coyotes to score. So yeah, that's one bet that I actually really like, is just smashing that over. The Leafs on the money line or something ridiculous like I believe, minus 300
Yeah, it's not worth it.
favorites. It's yeah, not really worth that. But if you parlay that with a couple different things, perhaps you can get some value there. So yeah, I predict that the Leafs will go on here and they'll absolutely beat the Coyotes, perhaps by more than 2 goals.
Yeah, this is a game that you go after all the player prop bets and in-game bets like Leafs by more than two. You could smash the Matthews scoring 2 goals. That's something we like, and I would definitely go over goals. So yeah, you could put together a nice little parlay just on a couple of prop bets there.
Yeah, and I hope it's not one of those, surprise me games where Arizona comes out and beats the Leafs. I mean, straight up against the Leafs, Arizona's 14-6 in the last 20 games against the Leafs. So, I mean, they definitely play well against the Leafs. But that being said, I still do like the Leafs in this one. This is a different Leafs team, and Matthews is coming home, and I think he's hungry to catch Leon Draisaitl in that Rocket Richard race, just 3 goals behind the NHL lead. And actually, just funny enough, we were talking about that race earlier this week. Odds at the time were plus 450 for Matthews. People are taking notice, man. It's down to plus 300. So hopefully you guys got that bet in at the beginning of the week, and hopefully Matthews pays you some dividends.
People are watching the show. That's what that means, Mike. People are watching the show and they're taking notice of our good bets, our little gems that we throw throughout the show. All right. Speaking of good bets, we are going to get to the last segment of Toronto today. That is our best bet of the night. I am 2-1 coming in. Mike is 0-3. I don't want to rub too much salt in the wound, but Mike, what is your best bet for tonight?
Best bet. Let's try and turn this around tonight. And once again, I'm going to be sticking with the NBA, and it's going to be the Miami Heat against the Atlanta Hawks. So the Heat right now are actually 2.5 point underdogs heading into Atlanta against the Hawks. And I like that value for the Miami Heat. I think they're going to come out and they're going to beat a really disgruntled Hawks team right now. We hear reports of John Collins not being happy with kind of his role within that dressing room on the court. And when this Hawks team kind of gets dysfunctional, they get really dysfunctional. The Heat, meanwhile, I mean, I think when they're one of the best teams in the NBA. They have a lot of talent. Obviously, Kyle Lowry's there, and he's kind of redefining kind of the way that team plays. And like the Raptors, they're a team that's defense first, defense heavy. So I think they'll find a way to contain Trae Young, John Collins, and Atlanta Hawks company tonight. And I'm liking that value at plus 2.5. What's your bet,
Yeah,
Luca?
I like that a lot. I'm going to stick to the NBA as well for my pick. I'm going to go with a team I talked about earlier, the Chicago Bulls, -1.5 against the Nets. I have no idea why this game is as late as it is. It's starting at 10 p.m. Eastern over in Chicago. But I do like the Bulls in this spot. The Nets, for as good as they've been this season in second place in the East, for whatever reason, they have struggled against top 8 teams. They're 0-7 against top 8 teams in the NBA. Not
Jeez.
to mention, 2 of those losses have come against the Chicago Bulls team. And going into tonight's game, it might be extra difficult for them because both Kyrie Irving, who is eligible to play in this one, and James Harden, both questionable. While you look at the Bulls, they've been playing great basketball. They're on that massive win streak. They did lose against the Mavs the other night, but they quickly went on another streak. They smashed the Pistons yesterday. And that's the one thing that could be a little bit of a trap, maybe, is that this one is going to be the second night of a back-to-back for the Bulls. But all in all, I cannot see the Nets beating the Bulls in this spot. I think the Bulls, they're going to have the motivation of once again proving to the NBA that they can beat this Nets team. So I expect DeMar DeRozan and company to have a big-time performance, and I like the Bulls against the Nets, and this would be their third win against the Nets this season. And I think after this, people have to talk about the Bulls being a team that does get out of the East and could make it to an NBA final. So I love the Bulls tonight, -1.5 against the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, the Bulls have made me a lot of money this season. I've been riding the Bulls kind of since the beginning, and as they obviously climb the standings, make noise, those odds have kind of diminished a little bit. But 1.5 point favorite, yeah, I'm with you there, Luca, especially when you consider the fact that Brooklyn will likely be without a couple of those guys. So that's a good bet, Luca. I can get on with that.
And to think many people didn't even have the Bulls in the plan. Could you imagine those odds if you put some money on this Bulls team to win the championship before the start of the season? You'd be licking your chops right now.
For sure, for sure.
That is going to conclude Toronto today here on the parlay. We talked a little Raptors, a little Leafs, and we got to our best bet. We'll see how we do tonight. But as always, thank you so much for watching. You can follow us all over social media. Definitely engage with us. Let us know who you like tonight. And we will catch you all again tomorrow with a brand new episode of Toronto Today here on the parlay.